think everybody's saved all their stuff up for July first, all that kind of stuff. Or, I'm not really sure what's going on, but there's a lot of, and I don't know if everybody's preparing for them, trying to make last investments or what. I've seen a lot of.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, Patrick Yost, I work in the paper. I haven't met you.
Good, nice to see you.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's a special place.
Madison?
Oh, yeah. What nice. Every day we're amazed at something else.
It is. Yeah, it's nice. I just got lucky. 30 years ago. That's what happened. Honestly, that's why I was
Okay. Oh, geez. That's what you call a good
early 20s with a 6-month-old baby. I was working here. So we could live here and have somebody in our house.
Watch my, watch my. So, she was there.
What I was, a long story, but anyways, yeah.
I'm still exploring the neighborhood.
We just 3 or 4 years ago sold that house and moved to Valley Farm. And I'm not sure how long that we want. Why it's better for us to do an old house.
Yeah.
But I kind of miss that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah.
So unless we.
And that's what she's done a good job. Always done a great job. Is keeping things in check and real.
It's the real challenge.
I feel sorry for him, man. I'd rather always tell people, I said, put these in the enclosure that's warm. That you can fix.
Yeah, yeah.
But you. Yeah.
David,
David and his, we've got a, just like our school system, we've got a very engaged citizen. You've got a lot of volunteers, and a lot of work. So, people think,
Call anytime.
yeah, I'll do it, Let's go to lunch someday.
All right.
He's hiring full clothes, right? And so, and because the mayor loves me out. I told him, and I ended up hiring a computer. And I know, and so, I said, John, I'm
Sure you'd still regret it.
I think where you go, when she gets experience.
I don't need a lot.
We don't pay any of our supervisors less than $70. Everyone at their supervisors is. And then we're looking at please borrow them.
No, nothing too bad.
I'm sorry, I was.
1 minute away, but we don't have a quorum, so I wait.
Hey.
Hey, Yost.
Look, I got thrown.
ready to go? Okay. Hello. Good, how are you? That's all right. We'll get started when you're ready. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting of July 11th. We'll get started. If you have a cell phone, we'd ask you please turn the ringer off so as not to interrupt. And we'll start with pledge and prayer. Eric, would you lead us in pledge and Carrie in prayer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would be glad. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, a day that we shall all rejoice and be glad in. We are thankful for each other. We ask you to bless the agenda that has been set before us today. We ask you to allow us to make sound decisions based on the citizens of Madison, Georgia. Amen.
Mayor Perriman and Councilmember Latham are absent tonight. And the next agenda item is approval of minutes of previous meetings. The called meeting on May 16th, the called meeting of May 23rd, the work session and called meeting of June 3rd, and the regular meeting of June 13th. If I may get a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to make a motion that we accept the minutes from May 16th, May 23rd, June 3rd, and June 13th.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a correction to the minutes. I believe that was the June 3rd, if I can pull it up here. Sorry. Get this, I'm on, I think, in the section where it is discussing the, let me just find that one. I had them all up. Not really seeing them right this minute. Let's see. At any rate, there is, does anybody have those in front of them by any chance? Eric, do you?
Which one are you referring to?
I believe it's June 3rd. And so it's at the meeting. I had them pulled up and now they're hiding in my, in the section where we're talking about the vehicles, the golf carts, there is, in the second paragraph, it just wanders off. There's no completion in that sentence. So maybe, Ashley, you'll see where it is. It just the sentence trails off and it's incomplete. It's a paragraph to the last of that section.
I don't believe there was.
I wasn't going to second it until we had the discussion. Is that fair? Or did we need to second it first? I see. Oh, okay. I apologize.
Do we take that as a second?
I second. Okay, there it is.
Yeah,
And
I
you
see.
have that correction there. Thank you.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just runs off.
And just above that, in that same sentence, is the word form that should be from, if anyone cares specifically. Thank you, and thank you.
So it's the second to last paragraph under the low-speed vehicle discussion. Yeah, that's good. You got it?
I was on.
Would somebody profess how to fix that, and we'll get a motion in a second?
So I make a motion that we accept the minutes corrected from Ashley.
You made your motion to accept the correction?
Yes.
Yes. I'll just need to delete that line.
Okay.
Because it
Just
looks
delete.
like I kind of was typing and
Okay.
cut and pasted and moved it around.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Betsy, you got it?
Okay.
Okay, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposes, none. Thank you. First up, under zoning hearings, is a public hearing, conditional use. Andrea Bernard is requesting a conditional use to 2151 Eatonton Road, Building H, 046B 048, to allow a medical office and a professional office.
May I, sir?
Bryce?
Thank you. Good evening. There we go. Good evening.
Evening.
As mentioned, this is for 2151 Eatonton Road, Building H. The applicant is merely going to be using an existing building. They're not proposing any changes to the outside or any other changes of that nature. The Planning Commission gave this a unanimous recommendation after their hearing. We've had no public comment for or against. So just briefly, the conditions the Planning Commission recommended are as follows. Expiration of the conditional use after 12 months after a use change. All biohazardous materials will be stored where they are not accessible to the public. And lastly, pickup and disposal stations are to be located in the rear of the building and not visible from the parking lot, either through screening, in a recessed area, or kept indoors. For the record, at the last meeting, the applicant indicated all these conditions were in line with their current plans of operation. Briefly, this is a medical office, as this condition indicates. Medical offices in a professional office park, which is what the overall development is, require conditional use, specifically because some of them have elements like this, hence the conditions on storage of materials. So we've had several appear in this office complex before. This site actually had one there previously, and the mayor and council approved one that did not have a waste component, I believe in May, if I'm not mistaken, for a podiatrist. So that's sort of the background. So as I said, this is fairly straightforward. Haven't had any comment, and that's basically it. If there are no questions.
Did, just for the sake of accuracy, it was a unanimous vote, but there was one abstention at the planning.
Yes, sir. Yes,
at
sir.
the
That was an
planning and
abstention.
zoning. More importantly, I was looking through the letter here. I can't see it now. Did I see earlier that there was some indication that the applicant is in agreement with these three conditions that staff has proposed?
They gave that as a verbal assent at the Planning Commission meeting, sir. I will point out that the applicant is available online, and you can run the question by them or to see if they've changed their mind in the interim.
Any other questions for Bryce? If not, we'll open the public
Thank you.
hearing now. Thank you, Bryce. All those in favor, who would like to speak in favor of this conditional use, please come forward, state your name and address, and share with us.
Mike Conrad's 255 North Main Street here in Madison. This is one of our properties, and we are supportive, and we are fine in terms of the property owner with the conditions that have been placed on this. And I believe, again, Andrea's connected, and if you have any questions for her specifically.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else that'd like to speak in favor of this? Ms. Bernard, would you like to speak?
Hi, good afternoon. I apologize for not being there in person. That's not a family business. But my name is Andrea Bernard, and I've been a registered nurse since 2010 and a certified nurse practitioner with a concentration in cardiology since 2016. I presently work in the inpatient sector at Piedmont Henry Hospital under a cardiology service, but obviously my plan is to branch out into my own practice, if you please, with the permission of the city of Madison. It's also my intention to move my personal residence to Madison within the coming year, as my fiance and I have purchased 10 acres of land out in Madison. So this is going to be my home, our home. And, as is my, part of my character, my personal character, I always want to be a productive member of my community and to use my platform, my talents, my gifts, my education to benefit those who are in my community. My passion is in healthcare. It always has been. and cardiology has found a special place in my heart. And with the prevalence of coronary artery disease and the impact of hypertension on the American population, I feel it's my responsibility and again my passion to help as many hearts heal as best I can. So with your help, I would love to be able to help the city of Madison, the Friends of Madison, and everyone in Morgan County, if possible, as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Bernard from the council?
That's good.
Okay, anybody here that would like to speak in opposition to this conditional use? There being none, we'll close the public hearing, and it's to the council for further discussion. Or a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve partial identification 046B. Excuse me, 048. Physical address being 2151 Building H, Eatington Road.
Would you like to add the
wanna
conditions
do that?
mentioned by?
The conditions, we can do the conditions as well. Let me go to them, I'm sorry. With the conditions being expiration of the conditional use after 12 months after a use change. All biohazardous materials are to be stored where they are not accessible to the public. Pickup and disposable stations are to be located in the rear of the building and not visible from the parking lot, either through screening or in a recessed area or kept indoors.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use for 2151 Edenton Road, Building H, 046B048, to allow a medical office and a professional office with the Planning Commission recommendations as stated. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, and none opposed. Thank you, Ms. Bernard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your time. Much appreciated. God bless everybody.
Okay, public hearing variance request. Melissa Klein is requesting a variance to section 700.1, table 11, residential zoning district dimensional requirements, specifically a side from the side property line for 342 Plum Street, M19090. Sure.
Thank you. The applicant, Ms. Klein, is requesting a variance to the side setback. Specifically, you'll notice here, they're asking for it on what would be approximately the southern side of the house. They are to the east of Plum Street for a reference for folks looking at this. So this is from Plum Street here in this picture. You'll notice the stakes. Georgia Civil has measured the distance there, and they measured it as 11 feet 6 inches. There was a question earlier in the hearing about some of the setback questions, and we decided, just for extra verification, to update the extant survey that they agreed and have gotten Georgia Civil to come in and clear that for us. I believe I have a typo in my slide, quite embarrassing. I'll get to that in a moment. The applicant is proposing a ramp that will extend 6 feet from the house. This particular ramp, this is the landing that extends, and the ramp will run parallel to the house. It's projected roughly in where you'll see the white. The yellow is the sidewalk going to there. I have a small typo in my presentation. Since there'll be 6 feet, and we're 11.6 feet, it's 5 feet 6 inches. Will be the variance request. That is the final verification, so a little typo on that part again. But the Planning Commission, when they looked at it, were concerned specifically, and you can get a feel for looking at this here, on the north side of the house, you'll notice that it has an extreme slope. We're getting into an issue of when ramps are built, the higher you have to go to get to the entry point, and you notice this house is relatively raised, the longer the ramp has to be practical. Now, if they put it on the north side, it'd have to be a very long ramp, take up most of the driveway, and probably also raise questions about front setbacks. Putting in front of the house would be the same similar problem and would be more intrusive to the neighborhood, because it would be out in front, and that will be the lead element of the house in terms of design. In regards to the rear of the house, I don't have a picture of that handy, but it is also a relatively tall distance. It's almost a full story difference, so trying to put that at a ramp is not practical. Then they have to start talking a lift. It's an outdoor lift, and it's a great deal cumbersome. So in this instance, they have sought a ramp on this side of the house, given the topography and situation. One of the reason they're asking for this is that they have a son who has mobility limitations, and he's getting larger. Kids grow. As a result, they're trying to get this in place to make it easier to get him in and out to school, and try to get this hopefully cleared up, at least not too far into the school year, which is why we're going forward on these requests right now. So this is purely for a medical need request, but ultimately in this case, the topography, and as this is a historic district, the topography is an element. The distance from the current side of the house to the other neighbor to the south, from building to building, is about 25 feet. So this still would not be extraordinarily close. So when the Planning Commission heard this, we had no public comment against this, and it was fairly straightforward. Again, the Planning Commission did want us to verify, which the surveyor has provided said information, and as a result, we're all square on that front. Unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission, and I went too far. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing, and anybody that would like to speak in favor of this variance request is welcome to do so. There being none, anybody that would like to speak in opposition to it? There being none, we'll close the public hearing, and it's back to the council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I had a couple of questions. When I was looking at the property today, and I see in your photographs the flag stakes there, does that represent where the edge of the new ramp, the proposed ramp, or is that the property line?
If I may, sir, that is the property line as surveyed by Georgia Civil.
Really?
Yes, sir.
How did the city ever decide that there was 9 feet then? That's not even close. After you put in a 36-inch space, 36-inch ramp, and
It was
somebody
based
figured
on, sorry, sir.
Yeah.
It was based on the initial survey. It's an older survey, and I used that as my reference when I was working on my staff report. The applicant had some of their own estimates, but I was going with that survey. Given that it was an older survey, the Planning Commission recommended a more recent, up-to-date action, which is why the folks did that. So you'll have that, so you'd have this information to clarify the exact distance. But the Planning Commission felt, because it was a situation of the topography, whether the fundamental reason that they recommended this was the terrain of the property
Okay.
itself.
So the staking was a result of the request by the planning and zoning to
Yes,
get
sir.
more definitive.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They wanted to get,
So 4.5 feet from the new edge of the proposed ramp to the property line is what we're looking at.
I believe it was it was 11 feet with a 6 foot, 11 and a half, 6 foot, that puts it 5.5. But you can give it a 4.5 in case they have to make an adjustment for stability. That's the discretion of the board. At any point, anyone can ask for a variance, and you folks can make a decision that we'd like to give them more leeway or less leeway depending on the circumstances. Obviously, this would not allow them to build on their neighbor's property at all, period, so that's never an issue.
Obviously, there's been no comment here tonight in the public hearing against this. I assume there's also no written letters from neighbors?
No,
at all?
sir.
Okay.
If you have any questions for the property owner, Ms. Klein is here, so she can ask questions directly, but other than that, she was the only one who spoke at the last meeting, other than myself, of course.
Okay, then if I could, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, is this variance that we're granting, should it not be specific to the south side of the house?
Yes, sir, you can add that as a clarification if you wish.
Does that need to be in the wording of this, or? will we-
Generally, sorry, sir. Generally, I had not thought that necessary, as their driveway's on the other side and they lose their driveway and easy access to the rear yard, but I don't see anything wrong at all if you ask for clarification to specify the side property line, sir.
I mean, I assume the variance we grant here
Yes, sir.
today will live past Ms. Klein's ownership of that
Sure.
property. Ms. Klein, I know
Sure.
to a certain degree, and I have no doubt she and her husband will take really good care of
Yeah.
the property. However, down the road, what would prevent someone using this variance to move the house, add a wall to the new point? It's not very specific in terms of, this is for a ramp, this is on the south side. Am I
Then-
nitpicking here, or is this a point that makes sense?
If I may, sir, I don't see as nitpicking as putting that specification does not impede the applicant from what they want to do. It does not provide them any negatives, and I can't see why adding a bit of extra specificity harms. If that makes you more comfortable on voting for it, sir, then that's perfectly fine.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I?
Mhm.
So Bryce, from the.
Yes, ma'am.
The flags represent the property line,
Yes, ma'am.
and then the ramp will be pretty much right on the property line, am I?
No, ma'am, it would be
No?
about 5.5 feet. Keep in mind distances, so it's not, you're standing not right next to it, so the perspective may skew things a little.
Okay.
But Georgia Civil did send an email with the distance indicated. So we
Okay.
did get a letter with them saying, here's where we stake, here's the distance.
Okay.
So we have that in writing from Georgia Civil, to be clear. So this is
Okay.
not me, this is not the applicant, this is a guy with the survey equipment.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, I'm going to hop on down then.
Thank you, Bryce.
Well, if there's no other comments, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll be glad to make a motion, if everyone's ready. I would move to approve the request for a variance to Section 700.1, Table 11, as approved by the Historic Preservation Commission for a side setback of 4 feet 6 inches, with the following conditions. One, that it would be on the south side of the property, and number two, that it would be for the construction of a wheelchair ramp.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance to section 700.1, Table 11, residential zoning district dimensional requirements, specifically a side setback for 342 Plum Street, M19090, with the addition of specifying it's on the south side of the house and it's for a wheelchair ramp. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, and none opposed.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I could make a quick comment since the voting is done. I just wanted to commend the clients for their patience in going through a multi-layered step process. And I think Melissa is fully understanding of what we have in Madison is very special, and we do everything we can here on this council to protect that. And that requires kind of a somewhat laborious process to make changes to it. So I just want to thank you and your husband for bearing with us through HPC and planning and zoning, and now us. So we're glad you're in Madison.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all your support.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Clark.
you. Yep.
Best wishes to you. Okay, public hearing, text amendment. Matthew Frick is requesting a text amendment to add trailer manufacturing as permitted use in the light industrial manufacturing zoning, District 12, in Section 630.3, Table 8, Industrial Zoning District Land Use Regulations. Yes, sir.
This text amendment's relatively simple. They are asking for this as a permitted use in I-2. The staff, when we looked over it, we did note that there is a wide range of things we allow to be manufactured in the I-2 zoning district. Just a few highlights: business machines manufacturing, electric appliances, metal stamping, glass fabrication, tools and hardware, medical appliance manufacturing. So the logic being, if we allow people to make an MRI in the I-2 zoning district, putting together trailers of various sorts is not too much of a concern. The applicant, and I don't know if they have a representative here or not, but they did indicate that staff, when they suggested a definition, that's Ms. Bernard, she's not the applicant, but thank you for checking, Mr. Coker. The applicant didn't have any concerns with our definition. Just very briefly, since it allowed them to build a wide range of items, staff did make sure to include, this does not include manufactured homes or any sort of housing. So one of the things they talked about is maybe making battery trailers for powering up stuff and all that. That all fits in what we're allowing. So, and the applicant asked for I-2, and staff left that as a permitted use in I-2. We did suggest a name change. To truck trailer manufacturing rather than their trailer manufacturing assembly, because this, and this is a terminology thing, matches the North American Industrial Classification System, or NAICS, which helps people like Ashley and ourselves track stuff because it gives it an additional verification and gives it a number. But clearly it would let them do what they want, and they indicated no concern on either of the suggestions from staff. It's in the area they're looking for. Planning Commission saw a little concern with the matter. They gave this a unanimous recommendation for approval to this body.
Thank you, Bryce. Anybody have any questions for Bryce?
Just a quick one, Bryce. So the reason that this use was not listed, it wasn't anything specifically wrong with
No,
this
sir.
particular use, just we can't list every single
Correct, sir.
potential use on into the future. Is that?
Our own, yes, sir, that is correct, and thank you for bringing that point up for the benefit of the public here. And if I may briefly, sir, that is basically because our ordinance, unless we say you can do something, it's a no. And since we really didn't have anything that was a close enough fit that we'd easily interpret it, we opted to simply go through the text amendment process for this applicant. And that's why they're here, or presented this to us. And, you know, zoning ordinances pick up odd things. We specifically ban sauerkraut manufacture of all things on our zoning ordinance. Don't ask me why. We call that one out as a no. So you get some odd quirks as time goes on, and that's why we have this text amendment process for you folks to consider stuff.
Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing now, and anybody that'd like to speak in favor of this text amendment is welcome to do so. Anybody that would like to speak in opposition to it is welcome to do so. There being none, this will go back to the council for further discussion and/or a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the text amendment for Matthew Frick that is requesting a text amendment to add a trailer manufacturing as permitted in the light industrial manufacturing zoning district in section 630.3, table 8.
I second.
Thank you. Would you care to have the Planning Commission recommendations as part of that motion in second?
So moved. I would like to add all the recommendations from the Planning Commission.
You okay with that for your second?
Yes, that's great,
Swagenhauser?
thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the text amendment to add trailer manufacturing as permitted into the light industrial manufactured zoning district I-2 in section 630.3, table 8. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, and none opposed. That passed. Okay, next up is the American Recovery Plan partial fund allocations.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I recuse myself?
Yes, you can. Thank you. As y'all will recall, we talked about this at some length in the past, but in an abundance of caution, I think Councilmember Joyce wanted it to have some more time to be consumed by the public and commented on, and I don't believe the staff's had any comments since such time.
I think there was some funding for the cemetery added, I believe, per my request, I think.
Karen and I are sharing this responsibility, so I might ask her to join me. The only modification that was made is we did look at reallocation for a little bit for the cemetery, like you said, Councilmember Joyce, and we did add that. It's under tourism product development, cultural tourism, and left it cemetery. That left it broad enough that the cemetery can contemplate what that might be, because, of course, they did not have a project at the ready. And happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Just for Karen, so this is the total amount that we are anticipating under the ARPA.
Yes, sir.
Just as a what if, so under, for example, splash pads, 125,000. What if that amount covers one splash pad instead of, we have adjustment ability within this document?
Yes, sir. So actually, the document you have before you doesn't actually have to be voted on, but as we move forward administrating the money, it's easier if we know that we have your endorsement to follow the general pattern that you see. So the idea with the splash pads, of course, is to try to leverage local investment with that. So a splash pad in general are going to run around 45 to 50. We're proposing 4 of those, but we're looking to each dollar. Well, I know that this is my approach. Anytime we find money, the idea is to take one local dollar and leverage it up with another dollar if we can make that happen. So 125 certainly will not cover all 4 splash pads, but it will help us make that adjustment to fundraise, to match, or to leverage a grant to get it to go a little further. But to be very specific to answer your question, there is latitude within this to adjust as necessary. Everything is being kind of treated as kind of either a reimbursement grant or as a actual leverage. Karen has built in under number 4 for water and sewer infrastructure a little bit of latitude there as well. So if it needs adjusting, you'll see us come back through the manager and give you an update or report as we might need to adjust it. But it's not a fixed table. It is a consensus recommendation to proceed with the administration of the funds as shown. How to do?
Yes.
And I will add, if I could, because of this item, this specific item, the splash pads, I did at the exhibit hall in Savannah for our yearly convention for GMA, I did have a long conversation with one of the vendors there. So I now know more about splash pads than I did 2 weeks ago. Still kind of in the minimal category, but I know more than I did 2 weeks ago.
Well, yay.
Well, as we progress on any of the items, I'm sorry, Councilmember, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead, finish yours.
As we progress with administering any of the items, you'll see those come back as either part of the manager's report or things that we've investigated and gotten cost quotes on. We've got some tentative quotes on splash pads, but of course, that'll be bid out. It'll follow the procurement procedure that is set up for that. But what we've done the budget based off what we think things are going to cost and how we think we can get them leveraged up to get the most for our money.
And just one further little question on the depot, recreational tourism for the depot, 125,000. Is that to complete the decking and the stairway entryway, or is that to do any interior improvements?
So this is actually a good question. You'll be seeing a follow-up report on this at probably your upcoming work session if we have capacity. I know that work session's filling up pretty fast. The 125 matches the money that is in the T-Splost. I knew she'd get it right. So between the T-Splost funds that are already allocated, I think there was 100,000 in there for the depot and 100,000 for the boardwalk, and they're lumped together if you're looking at your budget book. So between that 100,000 and this 125, this is to finish actually both the exterior and it's some of the build out for the trailhead. So the 100,000 out of T-Splost specifically goes to give us the restrooms, the accommodations that are necessary for the trailhead, and this 125 finishes the outside and all the underdecking and everything. In addition to this, remember that DDA has allotted 50 out of their budget over the past 2 years. That should finish it. And so you'll see a one-page handout at your work session that includes all the different funding sources and tells you exactly what the city is getting for its dollar value.
Is the foundation still involved in decisions on the depot, or is it strictly the city and/or DDA?
Is actually the foundation's making the decisions on the build-out. That is still being led by David Land, even though he's out of town. Scott Campbell is his local minion right now. And so Scott Campbell is the one who's hiring the contractor, bidding that out and getting that done. If you'll remember, the asset is actually owned by the Downtown Development Authority, and then it has a 50-50 partnership with the nonprofit. They raised the first $250,000 for restoration, and this is the match on the backside. And so we do have a little bit of manipulation of title that we're going to have to go through to make sure we can spend the T-Splost on it. We're probably going to end up having to do a sublease from the DDA to the city for the trailhead component. Because the T-Splost, T-Splost or Splost? T-Splost has some limitations on it. We have to be careful to make sure that that's in the city's constructive control. That might be a 15 to a 20-year lease. I believe that satisfies the answer.
Thank you.
Did I get to that?
You answered all my questions. Thank you.
My pleasure. You guys have anyone else?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank y'all for clearing that up, and if it doesn't need to be voted on, then I think a consensus is,
We have a consensus going forward, then, sorry, like I said before, that you will end up having to vote on this for a budget amendment because this is not in the budget for this year. So you'll see it as a budget amendment.
okay. Thank you.
And I wanted to add one side note about administration. So we have contemplated how we might flow through the funds so that as the grants are distributed, we don't end up with a conflict for the city. So it may be administered similar to our facade grant funds, but procedurally, we'll work on those answers and make sure that y'all are clear on how it's being handled. Is that good enough?
And if I may, we did talk at one point about disbursement. What are we looking at, especially in terms of like the nonprofits?
So I've given that some thought, and Karen and I have talked through that. So it would not function dissimilarly to our facade grant program, which means it would be a reimbursement program. We also have to be able to verify that the funds have been spent in the fashion that they're required to be spent by law. So, for instance, the three things that I told the nonprofits that we would like to see in advance, we're going to want to see their 501c3 letter from the IRS. We're going to need to see a one-pager that tells us who their current administration is and their mission statement. So that's our version of what a qualified organization is. Karen needs to see a W-9 so that we can make sure that we've reported for tax purposes in the correct fashion. And then number 4, we're going to need a 200-word statement, 5-6 sentences maybe, on how the funds actually are used and how they impact the local population. And that's our additional Heine coverage that we'll need. And so 4 or 5 pieces of paper, 4 of them should already be extant in their organization, and then they will turn in post-award receipts. And so maybe, say, like food pantry, for instance, they have receipts for buying food, and then they would just turn in the receipts with their package, and then they would receive a reimbursement check. So no one's being fronted funds, we think. We think it's going to be a reimbursement process, which is how we handle the facade grants. And that seems to work fairly well. Karen Robertson administers that for us. So
So have we communicated with the nonprofits and they know to get all this paperwork taken
every
care of yet?
nonprofit has received an initial phone call, but we didn't start collecting anything until we had this meeting tonight. Tomorrow they'll receive a letter with 5 bullet points, but at least 3 of them have already called, asked when funds might be available, and I've
does
already
that-
given them a heads up.
Then that's fine. And is that, is the reimbursement approach
Everybody
a
I talked to.
requirement, or is just what you all have decided you want to do?
It's not a requirement, but it is easier to document the use of funds for what they were allotted for under law, and it gives us some more defensibility. So nobody I talked to in the initial notification had any concerns. I will say, one piece of clarification. I did suggest that what we might do is if the council found it approachable or acceptable, that it would be retroactive for the pandemic period. So they can turn in receipts for what they've already expended it on, as long as it was during the pandemic period. Just because it's taken us longer to award the funds shouldn't preclude those expenses, as long as they went to execute pandemic relief as we discussed.
As long as the date is what is in, that the federal government came down and said,
Yes.
this is the start date.
So within the window that the feds gave us the award.
So then I'm guessing.
If that's acceptable to you.
I think that's acceptable, and I think that's probably a little bit more, what's the word,
Palatable?
palatable, yeah, to let them, because then that means they can kind of access money they might,
Have been waiting on.
Yeah.
Or hoped on.
And so I assume that then the letter will also indicate that and give them the date,
It will.
window
Mhm.
from which they can begin.
The only group that received any form of further feedback was Habitat. My relay to them was specific to comments that Councilmember Blanton had made at a previous meeting about the impact. Instead of it impacting one household, it needed to have a larger impact. And so my feedback to them was materials that could, materials and equipment that could be used on multiple houses in the future, not just one specific house. And they were very comfortable with that as well.
Good.
So.
Okay. All right, very
Any-
good.
Any other questions?
City Manager Clem, did that answer your question that we had earlier about the process with the nonprofits?
Yes, very well stated, and it allays any fear that I had earlier today. Thank you.
Just want to verify.
Thank you very much.
And I want to state for the record that we've got at least 2 elected officials that have relationships with some of the nonprofits. I know some of y'all get asked to serve on various boards. None of them have participated in the feedback this evening. So I wanted to make sure that that gets in the record.
Good, thank you. Good point.
Thank y'all. We'll wait just a minute for Carrie to come back in.
And I think, Betsy, if I could, your concerns about letting these groups know, I think Monica and staff went ahead and kind of let them know quite a long time ago that they were on the list and what their obligations were in terms of the paperwork to get that started ahead of time. I think that was done probably 2 months ago, I think.
With regard to the paperwork, did the nonprofits have a breakdown of what the paperwork was required? Or you just told them they were on the list to get?
We told them in general that Mayor and Council had considered a list, and that at the time where Mayor and Council made the award, that we would need further paperwork. And I did theorize on what those paperwork pieces would be, but didn't give them a hard list.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Monica.
Yep, come on in.
Full disclosure, I helped some of them get 501c. Yeah, I'm sorry, you did what, Jim? I helped some of them get a 501c. Huh?
Good.
On the,
Okay, next on our legal matters is the City of Madison redistricting map approval. This is, again, something we talked about at great length in the past, and out of an abundance of caution, Ashley and Attorney Carter, I think, suggested that we advertise it again, and
Been properly exposed, this is simply a resolution documenting what we've done.
And accepting the boundary changes.
so this is the final step of the multi-step process
Yes.
to get this put through.
Yes.
if nobody has any questions for either Attorney Carter or Ashley on that, it's ripe for a motion.
And also, the map has been updated. At the last meeting, we made a motion to include the property that was annexed off Commerce, or index District 4, and that has been amended. It was amended the next day, actually. Bryce was on it.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the City of Madison redistricting map.
Second the motion?
We have a motion and a second to approve the redistricting map for the City of Madison. All approved, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, and none opposed. Next up is the appointment of the municipal court judge, city solicitor, and city attorney.
Would it be appropriate for me to leave? I can take it either way.
Well, yeah.
Are you going to come back if you leave?
Heard what we're gonna- You may not say that if you know what we're going to say. You may change your mind.
So I don't have a list. I don't think it matters, but if you're more comfortable, I think you're fine. Thank you.
We're more comfortable with you here, thank you.
I know that in the city attorney's case, the mayor and Councilmember Latham and I served on that. And Ed, I think, actually chaired that. I don't have any notes, but I can tell y'all that we had a good meeting, talked about, and David, none, of course, but we talked about all things and how the city acts and how the city attorney helps us, and we were all in agreeance that we should continue on with Mr. Carter's services as our city attorney.
Was that a unanimous decision on
It
your
was
committee?
quite unanimous, indeed.
Good. I like that. Is this, are we going to do these all three together, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
I think so, unless it
Okay.
needs to be separate.
I would do them separately. if
Okay.
You're going to give separate reports or briefings.
Well, even though y'all weren't on the committee and the other folks aren't here, I can't make a motion, but if somebody would do that, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, I move that we accept or continue with our city attorney, Jimmy Carter, forever? No, I'm kidding.
One year term.
Is it a one-year appointment? Okay. For this next year.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to continue our
I should know. The length.
professional relationship with Attorney Carter for the next year. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. And none opposed. Thank you.
And I believe these terms started July 1st, if I'm not mistaken, with the fiscal year. Isn't that the year that we're on?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know, again, I'm sorry, I don't have the list of who chaired the other two, but if,
Carrie,
I chaired for Judge Merritt. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I?
yes.
I sent my, the minutes from Katie Dunsworth to each council member and also to our mayor. And my own minutes I have now, and I will read in my phone, from my phone. On the committee was David Nunn, myself, Chief Ashburn, Katie Dunsworth, and Betsy Wagenhauer, I'm sorry. The first thing I asked was, how has this year been? And he answered and said it's been pretty well. We talked about COVID-19 and how COVID-19 impacted the court system. We talked about his docket for this year, COVID procedures. He asked us to come and watch. I asked how long had he been the attorney for the city. I'm sorry, not attorney, judge for the city, a judge altogether. He said this is his 33rd year. He has to have 12 hours of training, and that has been completed. He also told us that he would like to he does a lot of delegation. He delegates things. He said code enforcement works really well. We pay $35 a day for the jail. We talked about House Bill 1013, which deals with mental health. It was a really good meeting, and we decided that we would retain his services for one more year.
Thank you.
So on that, may I make a motion? I move that we extend the services of Judge Merritt to the municipal court for the next fiscal year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue on for the next fiscal year with Judge Merritt for the municipal court. All in favor signify by raising your right hand, please. Thank you, and none opposed. City Solicitor.
Yeah, I was appointed by Mayor Perriman to chair that committee. We met on April 27th. I did copy council members today with both my summary and that of one of our attendees, Court Clerk Katie Dunworth. But at that meeting was Manager Nunn, Police Chief Ashburn, Clerk Dunworth, and myself. It's a little interesting with our city solicitor. That's the one of the three positions that we're reappointing tonight that is not mentioned in the charter. And the charter specifies a couple of things about the other two, but the charter kind of implies that the duties of the solicitor, who's like a prosecutor, I guess, could be done by our municipal court judge. We've chosen a better route, I think, in having Lee Moss fill that position. At any rate, I had a number of questions for him. He answered them very well. I've copied you. I don't want to get into real details, but I've copied you on my notes and both Katie's. The result was we were very strong opinion that Solicitor Moss is a very valuable asset in our city judicial system, and that we recommend highly that he be reappointed to another term to this position.
Very good.
So if there's no questions, I move to reappoint Solicitor Lee Moss to that position for one more year.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reappoint Solicitor Lee Moss for the next fiscal year. All in favor signify by raising your right hands, please. And none opposed. Thank you. Okay, under new business, we've got the resolution of surplus property. Karen, is that you want to share with us?
Yes, sir. This is just a list of mainly vehicles that are either out of service that the city owns or have been confiscated through the police department or a 90-day order. And then down at the bottom, a few sets of tires that need to be sold. And so we are asking that y'all declare this surplus equipment so we will be able to sell on Gov Deals through a competitive bid process.
Thank you.
What is the top kick dump, the 1993 GMC? In case I want to buy it, I'm looking for a top kick.
Well,
Is it a
you
dump
would
truck?
you would need to search on Gov Deals, and can't tell you when that's going to be.
Wow.
But no, yes, it is a dump truck. It's a extremely old, has gotten a lot of use in the city dump truck.
I don't think it's electric.
I do think we've had good success, have we not, with govdeals.com in the past?
We do. I've only had one issue, but it was during COVID, where a piece of equipment was bidded on and awarded, but we never received payment, and nor the bidder picked the equipment up, of course. And so Gov Deals handles that part to where they will ban that person from ever bidding again.
Yeah, David shared with me in Savannah that we actually had some piping that we wanted to sell, and we were going to have to pay to have it removed and disposed of, and actually got somebody to come pay us to get it and
Nice.
take it.
We
So
like that.
I have actually sold a house for DDA, and someone paid us to come demolish it.
Wow,
So,
yeah.
They made signs out of the posts.
wow.
so yes, Gov Deals is very successful. Wow.
You know, I will say that if you ever go on their site, they got some really neat stuff. At first, I thought these were things, I'm wondering, why does the city, why would they ever purchase these things? Then I realized a lot of these would be confiscated by law enforcement and
Yes.
in lieu of paying fines or whatever.
Yes, and then probably in the next few months, I'm probably going to come back with another list of some office furniture and random, even Christmas lights, or old Christmas decorations that other smaller cities would like to bid on and purchase for their smaller towns. So, but that's later on.
Thank you, ma'am. So if we get a motion to approve this resolution to declare this property surplus.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll be glad to move that the resolution presented to sell the aforementioned property through govdeals.com.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your right hands, please. And none opposed. Thank you. Okay, public service appointments.
Good evening.
Evening.
So we have 3 appointments for you to consider tonight. One for the Cemetery Stewardship Commission, one from the Housing Opportunity Commission, and one for the Public Arts Commission. All 3 are unexpired terms of members who, for one reason or another, had to step down from their position. I staff the Public Arts Commission, Monica's Housing Opportunity Commission, and Bryce is the Stewardship Commission. If you have any questions about them, it should be covered here on your cover sheet. And I will say that the person applying for the Public Arts Commission was, you'll recall about a year ago, we had 3 people apply for one position. And so when this came open, I called her or contacted her, and she was very excited that the opportunity had rolled back around.
Thank you.
Good proactivism.
And if you look at their applications, there's some expertise there for sure. So I'm very happy with these 3 applicants. And I say this every time, and I'll say it again. We are so indebted, I think, to our citizens who really care about our community and are willing to donate their time to serve on these commissions. We get so much benefit, and it's just really good for us and the elected officials, and it's great for the city to have so many citizens willing to donate their time for areas that they have expertise in or interest in. These 3 fit that category.
And a member of the public said, well, who are they? So Nancy Green has applied to be on the Cemetery Stewardship Commission. Timothy Robinson, who is in the room, has applied to be on the Housing Opportunity Commission. And Sherry Ann Collins has applied to be on the Public Arts Commission. So, you're welcome.
And you know all those people.
Okay. Motion would be in order to accept these folks.
Are we going to do them all at once?
The dates are different, so I would suspect Ashley may want them separate, but she may correct me on that.
We get a choice?
How about that?
Thank you. If I may, I move that we accept the 3 candidates for the 3 applicants for the 3 separate commissions, the Cemetery Stewardship Commission, that being Nancy Green, Housing Opportunity Commission, that being Timothy Robinson, and the Public Arts Commission being Sherry Ann Collins.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Ms. Nancy Green to the Cemetery Stewardship Commission, Mr. Timothy Robinson to the Housing Opportunity Commission, and Ms. Sherry Ann Collins to the Public Arts Commission. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, and none opposed. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, does staff, other than the case of Mr. Robinson, who's here tonight, does the staff call these people and let them know they've been selected and when the next meeting is and all that? I'm seeing kind of a thumbs up. Okay, good, thank
Looks like
you.
an affirmative.
Or you want me to call and take the credit?
Sure.
I will leave that discretion of the mayor and council. If they wish to make the call, I shan't get in their way.
You might make the call, Eric, seeing how you could use all the credit you can get.
Well, that is true. Thank you for thinking of that, Betsy.
You're welcome.
How about a compromise here, and the 3 districts represented by these candidates, the representative would call those people. So in other words, I would call Ms. Green, who lives in my district, at least for now. You can call Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Robinson is not in my
No, you
district.
call Sherry Ann Collins.
No, why don't we allow staff to call like they usually do?
I'm not opposed to that. I'll get credit some other way.
Yeah.
Okay. that gets us through our agenda tonight. Are there any comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Tim, City Council. It's green light. I'm just grateful that y'all allow me, and thank Monica and the mayor for reaching out to me, give me an interest in being on this housing board. That wasn't my itinerary at first when I came and talked to him. It was something else, and he said, I got a job for you. So I was always under the impression when somebody offer you something, you kind of go for it. And I'm grateful and happy that y'all have selected me to play a role in the city of Madison. And as my sworn obligation, I will do my best to help myself, help the councilman, help the city of Madison to be improved. So in that to do, I'd like to say thank you at this time.
Thank you very much for your willingness to serve. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And before we adjourn, and I apologize, Mr. Clem, I didn't officially welcome you in the
Oh, my
manager's
goodness.
seat for the first meeting tonight, but welcome, and
Thank you.
do you have a speech you'd like to?
Brief meetings.
Brief meetings. I see.
Anybody else on the council have anything? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome. We got right through it. Yeah.